and burn.
Hey, so tonight I wanted to discuss what I would consider to be Skinny Puppy's darkest album, at least from their sort of classic period back in the 80s, and that is ViviSect. This record, like I said, there's a infinite amount of darkness surrounding this album. The Iran-Iraq conflict that had taken place just prior to this, I believe it had just ended, I think. If I'm not right, the text will correct me. But it plays a big part in the samples that they've used, and I know that war was on a lot of people's minds at this point because it was televised really heavily here in the West, and it has definitely made an indelible mark on the production and sound and attitude on this album. And we know that Saddam was using chemical weapons during this war, and I believe that is why the track was titled VX Gas Attack, I'm pretty sure at least. This, like I said, this is definitely their darkest album. There's something that's so foreboding and so broody about this record that and I don't mean it's brooding in sort of like a hanging out in a graveyard smoking cigarettes and reading poetry. I mean it more like there's a real negative energy to this album, and it's almost like palpable. Like you could taste it when you listen to this record, and it starts dark and it gets darker and it ends even darker still. And I love that about this album. It's like one of those records where you could actually kind of feel the terror, so to speak. I mean, I'm not one of those people that really buys into the whole, oh my God, that album scared me so much that I couldn't sleep thing. I did kind of feel, though, that despite how disappointing the movie The Witch was, I thought the score was absolutely terrifying. And that was completely unnerving, and it was so incredibly well done. But other than one-offs like that, I don't usually find music to be all that scary, but there's something about this album that just says, go away, you know? And at the same time, it's Skinny Puppy, so the songwriting is incredibly tight, and the sampling and the synths and how the production just kind of all molds together to create this really like heavy sense of dread. It's as well produced as anything they've done, and it has although they've always been really political and they've really been into animal rights for their entire career, this is the record where I would say that the politics were sort of like the most at the forefront. Not, again, to say that the politics and things like animal rights, which has always been their go-to cause, was ever really in the background of anything else that they've done, because that couldn't be further from the truth. But it's just with this record, it's almost like this could have accompanied one of the stories about the Iran-Iraq conflict on CNN in the background, you know? There's something about this album that is so overtly political, and usually I try to stay away from politics in music, despite how much I love the Dead Kennedys, and they're like one of my favorite bands ever. And I think the reason that I don't mind politics with the Dead Kennedys so much is because they're more satirical, and Biafra knew how to kind of spin everything and make it sort of more tongue-in-cheek and a little more relatable and a little more fun. Other than that, though, I try to steer clear of politics with bands. Like, I love Crass, too, but fuck, man, the Falklands, like, that just pissed them right off. And I always found it a little heavy, and not being British and not from that era, it's a little hard for me to relate. But with records like this, you can't deny the political influence, and I wouldn't want to deny the political influence, because I do feel that that gives this album a lot more steam, and it gives it a lot more power. Because these songs are so bleak and so dark, and yet at times they're just as catchy as anything else Skinny Puppy has ever done. Well, that's assuming you find Skinny Puppy stuff catchy in the first place. If you don't, you're not going to like anything by them, because everything from this period, you could argue, kind of sounds the same. They kind of have that trapping, sort of like System of a Down does. If you don't like Chop Suey, you're probably not going to like anything from that band. And if you don't like songs like The Choke or Assimilate or Smothered Hope, you're probably not going to like Skinny Puppy at all. And then you factor in how noisy they can get and how soundscapish they can become. And if you really don't dig that stuff, you're going to hate Skinny Puppy. But yeah, look, it's almost a little over 5 minutes, so I'm going to go. So thank you so much for sitting with me while I discussed Skinny Puppy's ViviSect. This is an awesome record, and like always, if you liked this review, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. And even if you didn't like this review, still do something nice for somebody. And thank you so much for sitting with me. I will see you guys soon. Have a good night. I just wanted to say thank you for making it through the entire video. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to remind everyone one more time, even though I've probably already done this in the video that you just watched, to please click the like button as well as the subscribe button because it helps this channel grow. And thank you for hitting like and subscribe, and we will see you guys really soon.